Hello, and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor here in New Jersey. That's Albert Breer over there in Massachusetts. And Albert, still flying high from a big weekend of college football. And I'm not going to name the ESPN personality, but let me just say that someone tried to make this weekend all about them and drag College Game Day out to Pittsburgh and say, oh, we Yinzers are going to upset, trap game Notre Dame. F that. Business-like performance from Marcus Freeman and the Irish, and we remain in the playoff hunt despite everybody else's attempts to make this get their pound of flesh for it. So nothing can drag me down at this point. We're going for it.
Yeah, we had another controlled scrimmage on Saturday against UCLA.
Controlled scrimmage. I love that.
We got to manage. We got your state U this weekend, so I think we're gonna rest Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate for Michigan this weekend. So yeah, this is like I don't know. I it's been a weird college football season for me because it was like you had the Texas game, and then it's like nothing's even been close since. I don't know what our closest game is over the course of that time. I'm gonna look it up now, but it's I mean, there's no excuse to lose in 12 days anyway, but like, I mean, the closest game I'm looking at it now, well, maybe 24-6. So that there was one 18-point win, a 34-16, another 18-point win. So yeah, those are the two closest games.
I would argue this is not fun, and this is the same thing that
you say that's just not fun.
Well, it's not fun.
I'm enjoying it.
I mean, you and I have talked a lot about the grocery
It's allowed me to be a
store.
better father. I will say that.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, every Sunday you just expect to dominate flawlessly. And it's like when you get to the end of like a role-playing video game and you're already at level 99, there's no grind left. It's just like every game is an ass kicking. And Notre Dame does a great job of just making it entertaining for the fans every week. There is a moment in that game where you're 200% positive you're going to lose every goddamn week. And
was there this week?
I mean, it was slow going at the beginning. I would say I was trepidatious about this for a little while, more so going into it. But I mean, there were those moments against Navy. There are those moments to get, any school that you play, they're going to just scare the bejesus out of you for a couple minutes. I'm sure Syracuse is going to give us a heart attack this weekend too. So,
and I'm looking at my TV right now, and I'm trying under the over the Chiron. What are the biggest takeaways from Sheduer Sanders?
Shadure Sanders. Yep. Okay. Listen, how about this? Okay, we're going to get into it now.
Hold on, I got to take a picture of this.
Okay, we're going to get into it now, and we're going to go through some of the more important games. We'll probably breeze through some of the laughers here, but our goal for the rest of the show is we each get one Shadure Sanders mention, and that's it. And we're going to cut it off. That's it.
I thought we could have more fun with it than that.
I mean, I just don't know, we'll get there. Okay, we'll get there.
We'll get to it.
This is not a topic.
I agree. It should not lead the show.
No, I'm putting my foot down. This is we can't talk about it now. But here's where I want to start, and I think it's a little bit different, just because I'm kind of just still blown away by it. But I think this is a really good thing. The Chiefs lost to the Broncos, and they're now 5-5, and most of the playoff analytics at this point show them as about a 50% chance of reaching the playoffs.
Are you officially concerned?
What's that? Well, here's what I want to say.
Because I'm starting to get there.
Well, here. All right, let's get there. But I want to just set it up by saying this. Mm-hmm. Okay. They have lost head-to-head games to every single wild card team, all three of them that are ahead of them in line. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're 5-5. They have not been 5-5 since 2015. And that was the team that started 1-5 and then won like 11 straight games with Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that the team that maybe blew the big lead in the playoffs to Andrew Luck? Or no, probably not.
I don't think so.
Oh, it would have been like the 13 team. I think that was earlier. Yeah. Anyway.
They're 0-5 now, Albert, in one-score games after being 11-0 in one-score games. And so My thought is this, because I think everybody's kind of scrambling for a big picture thought here about like, this is the end, this is this, this is that. Here's what it is. And I'm curious if you agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the AFC West refusing to behave like the AFC East did when the Patriots were dominating. Because what did the AFC East do? Every year, the teams just lost their goddamn minds. Like Rex Ryan had a good season, and then they're like, let's bring in Plaxico Burress and Derek Mason and all these other guys, and then they blew up, right? And then the Dolphins, let's have a good season under Adam Gase, and then they blew it up. Let's have Brian Flores come in, and then they blew it up, right?
This is a good conversation though, because this is like my theory on it. For 20 years, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady destabilized the AFC East. And here's the reason why, right? The reason why was over all of those years, access to the division title was gone. So the path you had to walk to make the playoffs was much narrower. So the chances of you making the playoffs were a lot less than it would be in some other division where in a random year, 9 games might win the division, right? So then you had these teams scratching to get in the playoffs. You don't make the playoffs. You're probably firing the coach before you should, even if he is making progress. And so now you're turning over coaches. That's affecting the development of all of your players, in particular your quarterbacks. And it turns into this vicious cycle where over and over and over again, because the Patriots were up there at 14 wins, 13 wins, 12 wins, there was just it cut all those other teams off at the knees. I think the difference now and in the AFC West now is the quality of the coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts. In that, and we can get to the quarterbacks too, but like, I mean, the last place team has a Super Bowl winning coach. You know what I mean? Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh are very viable rivals. What was the closest thing Belichick had to that in the AFC East?
It was Rex Ryan.
Saban?
I guess. I mean, I think it. I mean, in
probably
terms
Ryan
of performance,
from an NFL standpoint. Yeah, like
from a performance standpoint, it was Rex Ryan.
It was Rex Ryan. Yeah. But I mean, like you think about like the people that the guys that got hired. I mean, Buffalo. It was before Sean McDermott got there. Think about the coaches who went through there. I mean, it was Dick Duran and Chan Gailey and Rex Ryan himself, right? Like was there at one point. Like I don't know. I just you look at like kind of how those franchises were destabilized. I think that's an excellent first point on this is that division, you don't have like okay, like we can tiptoe through to November and still turn it on and win the division. Like that's not the same as it was for New England for all those years.
And my thought here is that I think that the AFC East was up for grabs more than teams would have allowed themselves to believe. Like, I think a lot of it was psychological back then. I mean, think about how much Rex talked about the Patriots and obsessed over the Patriots and made them this whole thing. And then even when McDermott was there, if you saw Patriots guys on the sideline, you were flipping out and trying to throw them off the field. And like, they were in everybody's head. And I think what was cool about the AFC West is like, nah, man, I'm going to go get Jim Harbaugh. And I'm going to go get Sean Payton and F you. I don't care. I'm not worried about it anymore.
That's what I was going to say. Aren't Payton and Harbaugh the two ultimate FU coaches?
Yeah. I mean? And that's great. And
like, they're not going to be, they're like, those guys are not going to be intimidated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what you needed to do. And maybe other coaches, good established coaches, didn't take jobs in the AFC East back then because they thought it a fool's errand. But I think the best thing that could have ever happened to football and possibly to the Chiefs, because this is going to force them to step their game up too, was the arrival of Harbaugh and Payton. Because, and if you're saying like, what does this necessarily have to do with Sunday? And the Broncos beat the Chiefs on Sunday. I failed to mention that.
It has something directly to do with Sean Payton, I would say.
Right. And that is something directly to do with, it does have something directly to do with Sean Payton. But Sean Payton beat the Chiefs in his first year with Russell Wilson. Jim Harbaugh was swept by the Chiefs his first year, but then beat the Chiefs in the opener this year. And what you're doing is you're just slowly chipping away at the mystique of this team, and you're showing other teams blueprints on how to beat them, how to contain Mahomes, how to slow the offense down, because your team, because you're a good coach, like Sean Payton, right? Another good coach is going to follow you and be the defensive coordinator, and Vance
Well,
Joseph. And Vance is going to leave him. He's going to be a head coach again after this year. And same with Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, right?
yeah,
You're good coaches. You're going to get other good coaches. And all of a sudden, you're just reducing that margin of success that the Chiefs have. And to your point, was able to allow them to tiptoe. Now they can't tiptoe anymore. And I think that's great. That's good for the NFL, Albert. Last year was kind of
yeah.
embarrassing. Like to have them go 11-0 in one score games and to look as bad as they did and then to get blown out in the Super Bowl, that's not good. That's not good for anybody.
Right. And I honestly, like, I don't think it's fair to say Buffalo is the best team last year. And like in the
Yeah.
AFC, yeah, not the NFL,
Yeah.
the AFC.
Yeah.
And like last year really was Buffalo's time. Last year was Buffalo. That was when Buffalo, I think, was set up to break through. And I mean, they almost did it. Like, Josh Allen somehow got that ball. I think it was to Dalton Kincaid, right? Like Kincaid probably should have caught that ball. If he catches that ball, do they win that game?
Yeah.
So like it's that close, and we're talking about those sorts of margins. And look, like I think there's another piece to this too, that eventually the Patriots wound up feeling that I think the Chiefs are starting to feel too, which is just the amount of damage you take on.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. Like, I think when we talk about the 3 championships, we almost discount the fact that they made it all the way to the end 2 other times too. So,
Right.
like, you're talking about 3 or 4 extra games every single year. And we're at the point now where that's added up to a full season. So they've played a full extra season, beyond what most other teams have done. And then there's that element of taking everyone's best shot and being everyone's prove it game every single week. Teams can turn their season around by beating you. Teams can prove who they are by beating you. Teams can affirm their status in the league. And it's interesting because I had that conversation with Sean McDermott last night after they beat the Bucs. And we were talking about how like they have turned into that, right? Like where like Buffalo is a big game for everybody. So, New England earlier in the year, like their prove it game was at Buffalo. That was just another game for the Bills, right? They played the Dolphins last week. That's kind of like where Buffalo can get caught in trap. That's a season saver for Miami, like, so Buffalo is adjusting to the fact that like, okay, like they've got the reigning MVP. They've been in AFC championship games. Like now they're everyone's big game. And so there's an adjustment that comes with that. And that you've got to get used to like every single week, someone's getting up for you're someone's big game every week. And Kansas City's been dealing with that for like 5 years now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so like, there's almost like, it's almost like you can see like, I don't know how I want to put this. It's almost like you can see like a little bit of fatigue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's probably the best way to phrase it on the way that the Chiefs carry themselves in every one of these games where they walk into these amped up environments. And it's like, I almost feel like you can see it, like where it's like, the energy of the other team, and you see the energy of the other team, and it's like the Chiefs are just dragging themselves out for another 12-round fight. It's just, I think there's an element of that over time can really kind of catch up to you. Like Jacksonville on that Monday night, like how huge a game was that for Jacksonville? That's just another game for the Chiefs. You know what I mean? I think it's something that just it takes time to adjust to that, and then once you've adjusted to it, there is like a toll that the damage takes. If you've been playing in those sorts of fights every single week.
Yeah. On the Broncos side, I mean, this is one of those. I heard somebody say like, "Oh, they're going to be all right, barring injury." At a key offensive position. I think they could get hurt at a key offensive position and be totally fine. I mean,
if we're talking about barring injury, they're like without one of the top 10 players in the league, regardless of position right now. Right.
And Vance Joseph's defense just keeps playing better. And he has this simplistic yet complex formula where you never know who's rushing you as a quarterback. And that stuff
they're relentless. Like they're
relentless. Yeah. And some of the third down pressures that he called yesterday were just so on point. I mean, Albert, I don't want to overstate it at this point, but I think if we're talking about tap-ins for who's going to become a head coach this next year, I mean, Vance to me looks
Vance is
like
up.
he's leading the pack,
Vance is up on the list. Like if I'm Sean Payton right now, I'm looking on my staff and seeing is there somebody here that I think is
Right.
the next man up. Because I do think like this is all right. Like now, I think Vance has earned himself a second shot. I give him a ton of credit too. I mean, like like if we're talking big picture here with VJ, like the fact that he was low ego enough to go back to the place that fired him, you know what I mean? Like where he had a really awkward, weird 2 years and now become like sort of this conquering hero as the defensive coordinator is awesome. And I think that makes him a more attractive head coaching candidate. You're getting a really mature guy, who's been through it, who can handle it.
Yeah.
And this is a guy too who, if you remember at the beginning with Sean, like a lot of people wanted him fired. Sean stuck by him. Wasn't there a 70-point game in there, right? Like if you remember back a couple of years, So, I mean, VJ's done a great job, and they're so balanced defensively too. I mean, balanced and deep, I think is what I think of. Because without Surtain, they still have Moss and McMillan and Barron, the rookie who's starting to play really well. They didn't have Singleton out there. You think of the pass rushers, and they do it with, multiple guys up front. Zach Allen obviously was a huge addition for them a couple of years ago, but like to develop their own, and they don't have a Myles Garrett, but Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. Like I said, like if you want to talk about typifying like what relentless is with that group, like those guys off the edge are relentless. It's an impressive group to watch. They keep the pressure on you at all times. And I mean, to be able to stand up to Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter the way that they did, I think it's like the cool thing about it is, so I was talking to one of their guys last night, and he was talking about Sean and the job Sean's done, and how maybe the best work that he's done has been at the toughest moments.
Yeah.
And so if you remember, there was a game that was very similar to this one in the middle of last year, Connor. Remember that one where they lined up and Will Lutz got a 35-yard field goal blocked, and it looked like they were finally going to beat. The Chiefs and get over the hump and all of that. And so that dropped them to 5-5. And at that point, I want to say they were 13-14 for the Sean Payton era, right? So for the first year and a half of Sean Payton, they were 13-14 at that point. And my understanding is that Sean got in the locker room afterwards, and he said, "You guys are right there. I believe in you. I believe in what we're doing." And he had a way of kind of galvanizing the group. And since then, they're 14-4. And this was significant because for them, what do they beat them on this time? A 35-yard Will Lutz field goal. You know what I mean? So it's the same sort of scenario. And this time they get over the hump. It's just, everybody's going to make these things about the quarterback. And it kind of frustrates me sometimes because like people almost talk about it like it's one-on-one basketball. This is a really complete football team, And it's not like they don't have issues. They got to get Surtain back, and losing J.K. Dobbins is a huge blow because that's going to affect the way that you use Harvey, But it's just a tough, old school. It's like people don't think of Sean as old school, but this is a very old school, tough football team,
It is. Yeah.
It's a Marcellus team is what it is.
Yeah.
Smart,
I totally
tough, agree. Aggressive, all of that.
Fellas, you already know what time it is. It's time to level up, and Blue Chew just dropped something crazy. I'm talking next level. Championship belt, gold-plated crazy. Blue Chew Gold is the newest innovation from the #1 chewable ED brand. This ain't your grandpa's little blue pill. It's the 4-in-1 beast that's setting the gold standard for performance. We're talking 2 ingredients for blood flow that keep you pumping, mixed with apomorphine and oxytocin to turn up the arousal and the connection in your brain and body. Blue Chew Gold dissolves under your tongue and works in as little as 15 minutes. That means you can get it on quicker and stay in the game longer. Elevation without hesitation. This is peak passion and peak performance in a single tablet. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month of Blue Chew Gold with code MMQB. That's promo code MMQB. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the the podcast. Let's get going because we have there were so many gigantic games here, Albert, this weekend. Like, and this is when the NFL turns the corner and they're like, it's very cute baseball that you had the World Series and everybody was way into that. Now let me just stomp on your throat here because that's what's so crazy about this. I don't even know where to go next, but I want to go to Sunday Night Football because you and I had the same reaction to this. The Eagles beat the Lions 16-9, and first and foremost, and it's not even close to a conversation as to what else is important here. The Lions were on defense. They held the Eagles. Okay. It's third down and just this ridiculous ticky-tack pass interference call. I didn't even see any contact on AJ Brown. I'm glad.
It was Chris in, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad Chris Collinsworth said something. He's mostly a company man in terms of what goes on in those broadcasts, but he lost it. I think collectively everybody outside of Philadelphia lost it.
That was like a visceral response too. You could tell it was almost, wasn't it almost like he was holding it in? You know what I mean? Like, and he had been holding it in, and it was just like boom, there it is.
Yeah.
So, first of all, what is replay assist there for? I mean, like this is this to me is like when you buzz down, and this is why having someone upstairs would help, because if you have somebody upstairs who's got some level of power over the game, is focused just on one game, not on some command center where they have social media up, then I think this sort of thing can get taken care of. A game should not end this way. And I'm going to advocate now for taking officiating down to the studs. The problem is that they're still officiating games the way that they did in the 70s. They've just taken the technology and the resources and added. So they're just piling all this stuff on, right? Meanwhile, they're changing rules and they're doing this and they're doing that. And I'll give you an anecdote, and people think that this is just a fan thing. It's not. Okay. So I did that poll, as I always do, my midseason awards poll, where I text GMs and VPs of player personnel and pro scouting directors across the league and have them vote on the awards. Well, one thing I do as part of that when I send those texts out is I say, like, hey, is there one emerging trend in the NFL or something that you've noticed that you think that you think is underrated or should be mentioned? A bunch of guys without any prompting whatsoever said officiating. It's inconsistent. It's not being communicated to us correctly. It is a mess. So this is not just me and you on a podcast. This is not just Joe Blow on social media complaining about the officials because we have more angles than we ever had or because everything's crystal clear. This is people in the league that are not happy with the state of officiating. And the worst thing is no one's being held accountable because all the NFL cares about is the PR fallout. And really the way things have gotten to the point they are now, where you have the replay assist, but it's inconsistent. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't. It's because all they're worried about is like, we just don't want officiating to be on like Get Up or on whatever on Monday morning, right? Like we just want to avoid that conversation.
Right.
And if that becomes your primary concern, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to keep patching holes. All right, there's a hole here, we're going to patch it. There's a hole there, we're going to patch it until like the whole the force of the force of all this water that's gone under the bridge comes and hits the wall and topples it down. And I think we're at that point now where, like it's, you've bastardized this thing and complicated it and tangled it up so many different ways that you're using like a 1970s infrastructure with 2025 technology and it doesn't work. And so like you put the officials in an impossible position, right? Like where they know they've got Big Brother in their ear and they're looking for 15 different new things every year because there are all these points of emphasis that the competition committee is giving them because no one can sit still because everybody's got to justify their jobs. So you've got all these new rules. The game's moving faster and faster and faster. So you train your eyes to see one thing. Now you guys see all these different things because of all the rules changes, right? And it's a mess. It's a mess. And the NFL has to come to grips with the fact that it's a mess. And what they have to do And maybe you can't do this in one off season, but what they have to do is at some point they have to look at it and say, you know what? We've got all these new technologies. We got all these new resources. We got all this stuff that we can use that we could never use before. So what we need to do is we need to evaluate everything, and we need to reimagine officiating in 2025 and reimagine the way that we do all of this, because this isn't two 70-year-olds with, carrying sticks across the field anymore. That's not the day and age we're in anymore. And so I don't know, maybe it means like reimagining it over the course of a couple of years, but what they're doing right now clearly isn't working. And because they're also worried about the PR of it, they're more worried about controlling reaction, right? Controlling the message than they are about actually fixing the problem.
They are so lucky.
Sorry, that's a lot, but
no, the NFL is lucky that happened in prime time. And they're lucky that most fans aren't like us and are sitting there glued to a television for the better part of 14 hours on Sunday. Yep. Because in the Madrid game, a worse pass interference was called on Deebo Samuel and Mike McDaniel. So this is how bad it is. Mike McDaniel could not be restrained by his get back coach, who, by the way, I met his get back guy, Drew, security officer, former Miami police detective, tough MFer, big guy. Okay. If Mike McDaniel is so mad that you can't grab him and get him back on the sidelines, think about how bad of a pass interference call that is. Now, Mike's a wiry guy. I'm going to give him more credit than other people, but like, this is an embarrassing sleepwalking stretch of football right now on the officiating front. And maybe this just ranks how these guys get picked for big playoff games or stuff like that. But Albert, how many times have we seen it, right? Where this stuff comes to a head and then the solution is ultimately to just kind of swallow your whistle in the playoffs or in the big game. And in the Super Bowl, it was a little bit different because right at the beginning of the game last year, there's a really bad pass interference call that benefited the Chiefs. And then on the next drive, there was the makeup call. And then they backed out for like the rest of the game. And they were like, we're just not touching the whistle. I almost think that's better. Like it should almost go. I was reading an interview with a Supreme Court justice the other day, and they were defining like such clear and obvious that everybody in the world stands up and is like, holy shit, we can't have that. Like that should end up just being the bar, because we don't want all this stuff. It's overcomplicated. And maybe that's the bar for this overhaul that you're talking about. If a guy's getting his face mask twisted and he can't see, he's looking out of his ear hole, throw a flag. If holding is so bad that you're seeing the jersey come off, throw a flag. If a guy is standing over the ball on defense, throw the flag. But otherwise, like, let's get back to the beauty of physicality and of football and of the flow of a game and get these guys out of it. Like it's just ridiculous, Yeah.
And I think there's an easier way to do this. Again, I think having a sky judge would be very helpful, because it's patently insane. The idea that you and me, and I'm looking up my screens that I watch football on every Sunday, right? Like that you and me can sit here at home and get the benefit of 12 different cameras in crystal clear HD. At a moment's notice, we can see almost anything that we need to see. And you're not fully giving that benefit to the officials on the field, which is what a sky judge would do. And they've tiptoed around it. They don't want to fully do it. I don't know. I mean, like I said, like we can have a car wash for them if they need to raise the money to add an extra official to every crew, because I mean, we don't need to get into the private equity mindset of the owners now, where like every single expense, every single penny needs to be counted for. But like, there's got to be a better way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it does include using the technology, but I think it includes using the technology in an intelligent way, where you've got somebody who maybe the coaches don't have full access to, but who is helping raise the level of accountability for the crew in general. And I mean, I understand like for a long time, part of like the resistance on that was like, will the coaches have access to these guys during the game, which is like, okay, like, so you want the referees to be accountable to the coaches. Got it. Like that's a fair concern. Conor, like 7 or 8 years ago, the coaches turned on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no, we'd rather have it be fair. You know what I mean? Like, we'd rather have like them get these calls right because their job security, their job security rides on it, and all they're asking for is the very best that everybody can do. And I know there are more than a few people in the league that feel like the NFL is not doing the very best it can do. And almost that it's whether it's intentional, whatever, like they don't want to flip over the apple cart on the way these games are officiated, but your resources are better than they used to be. You've got the ability to, again, see these things from so many different angles now and use the technology effectively. Just do it. And this is going to, you know what this is going to take? It's going to take putting together maybe a 12-man committee of people who are really invested in the game, like your own version of the Madden committee, and having them look at different solutions and putting a couple of longtime officials, maybe a Dean Blandino, whoever it is on that committee, and saying, how can we officiate these games more effectively with everything that we have to officiate them? It almost feels like the virtual measurement is like a fucking toy at this point. Sorry, I swore there, but it's almost, doesn't it feel that way though? Because it doesn't, like, it's not faster. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what it is? It's like when you have coffee, like if you stay at a friend's house and then they make a big deal out of the fact that they have like a milk frother at their house, and like, you know that they don't use it every day, but then when they're over, they want you to know that they have one. So like every now and then the NFL's like, oh, let's break out virtual measurement. Like, hello.
It's like, hey, we're using the technology, guys. See, we're doing everything we can.
Like,
I mean, that's the whole thing about it, though, is like, this is like the way they're treating officiating. It's like they're building a movie set instead of the actual house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like from far away, it looks like a fully functional operation. And then, you walk up closer to it and you see, no, like that isn't real. Like you were just kind of putting window dressing on everything,
Yeah.
It just feels that way to me.
I don't get how you can't have, like, so how many games could possibly be taking place over the course of a weekend? At max 16, right? So you don't have 16 guys, 16 officials that you like enough where they graduate to, like, president official or whatever, gold or whatever. And that guy is in the booth.
Referee emeritus.
Referee emeritus, whatever it is, right? Like Vinovich and Cheffers and like all your A guys who've done the Super Bowls, right? And you can mix Blandino in there, and you can take a couple of these guys and mix them in there, make them,
whatever,
put them in the booth and give them the opportunity to have the headset on and to view the game as an official, see the flow, see Sky Judge, see what we're seeing on television, right? And then you just, you pump up a few refs from college on the ground floor and you're in communication with them the whole time, because that's where I feel like we're losing the thread. Like an official that's in there and is in the course of that game, like, and I've gone on way too long about this at this point, but it arrives back to my forever point on this. It looks suspicious. And you have gambling issues, and you have everybody already thinking this thing is rigged and conspiracy. It was such a bad call that it feels suspicious. And that bothers me. And
that's the other bed that the NFL's made for itself, right?
And I just don't understand exactly why you can't have 16 officials that are good enough to sit in that booth every Sunday and to dictate the flow of the game, to be in communication with Park, so that these guys down on the floor don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Like down on the floor, it's like, okay, you guys worry about holding, you worry about all the receivers being on the line. You worry about procedural stuff. I'll take care of the big picture stuff, the kind of stuff that's going to swing a game dramatically. Like that's in my hands. Okay. And whatever. I don't think, I can't believe we're not here. Have you been looking for a natural way to relieve aches and discomfort? The CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp are formulated to work with your body, not against it. Guys, at the end of a long NFL Sunday, you're writing, you're staying up all night, you're podcasting, your body is still so energized, and Cornbread just helps you chill out, helps you get into a nice headspace and really invite a nice night of sleep. Cornbread Hemp CBD gummies are made to help you feel better. Whether it's stress, discomfort, or just needing a little relaxation, they only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD. Right now, MMQB listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/MMQB and use the code MMQB at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/MMQB and use code MMQB. Let's very quickly on the game front.
On the game itself, the Eagles are winning games different ways now. People aren't as comfortable with it because it looks a little unfamiliar, but this is about Vic Fangio's defense. And
Yep.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Jordan Love and Jared Goff look like they can't play football in back-to-back weeks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that like in a 6-day stretch, they have taken two very good quarterbacks and made them look like they don't belong in the NFL. And I mean that with all due respect to Love and Goff. But those two guys did not look good playing against that Eagles defense. And I think like it's indicative of a team that that's going to win a different way. It looks like the Jalen Phillips acquisition is working out in a big way. And you add them to like the monsters they have in the middle, Davis and Carter. And I mean, God, Ajomo looks like he's like the next one kind of replacing Milton Williams in that rotation. And then the young DBs they have, they have time to work things out offensively because of what they've got defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so impressed with the job Vic's done because I had a conversation with him over the summer and I remember saying to him, I was like, well, this is going to be good for you guys, right? Because now you can, the guys can kind of hit the ground running. And he was like, what are you talking about? We're replacing half our starters. And it was the first time I'd really thought about it. You know what I mean? Like it was the first time I'd really it hit me like, holy crap, they lost. So like you go down the list, they lost Milton Williams. They lost Josh Sweat. Beginning of the year, they didn't have Nakobe Dean. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They lost Darius Slay. I mean, there's a ton of guys that they lost off that defense. And I kind of got to thinking like, maybe they're not going to be as good defensively as we had thought. And here they are, with a bunch of young guys playing. They again acquire Phillips, and that's a defense that can win a championship,
Yeah.
And so now what they've done is they've bought the offense time to work its issues out. They're going to be in the playoffs. We know that now. There's plenty of time for the offense to figure out what it needs to be in January.
I just think this defense is not just like this defense. And I think it was Cody Alexander had a great mashup of clips from Nakobe Dean last night. Like Nakobe Dean's covering Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs step for step. And that's like your third best linebacker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this team is so good and so versatile. And this defense is so strong that it's like, and I get the other side of it, and I get the frustration. I'm kind of tired of AJ Brown, if I'm being honest, even though I understand where he's coming from. But like, why wouldn't you go through every effort to play into this defense's strengths, right? Like, why wouldn't you run the ball to keep them off the field, to get them well rested, to shorten the game? Yeah. Like, this defense can handle anything. Like, they are good enough to beat any team in the NFL, to match up against any team in the NFL.
I mean, and what's scary is they should, at least on paper, continue to get better over the course of the year because Phillips is going to get more comfortable. Jalen Carter's still a young player, obviously in the middle of that defense. Ajomo is getting better with reps, it looks like. Nolan Smith settling in as a full-time starter, Jahad Campbell, and all the different ways they can use him. And obviously the young DBs with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. It's I'm starting to think like I don't know where the hole is in that defense. They needed an edge rusher. They went and got Phillips, who
I don't think there is one. Yeah. I don't think there is one. Right.
Right. Right. So is that good enough? Then can you win the playoffs can this formula be enough? Like this different formula than last year, can it be enough? I mean, I look at it. I mean, Conor, so their next 4 games, I mean, you look at the rest of their schedule, like they're going to get to 13 or 14 wins. Cowboys, Bears, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders.
Oh, those 2 Commanders games, they're just probably like, yes, we did it.
I mean, so right now they're 8-2. It's hard. Do they lose? I mean, maybe Chicago. Maybe they lose to Chicago. Maybe that's the Black Friday game. Maybe, but I don't know.
Like I could see them getting blown out by the Bears, and then everyone making this a big statement when like they're just kind of tired, and Ben Johnson has a heater.
And then AJ Brown goes back on his promise to Jeffrey Lurie to get off of social media, and it jumps right back on.
How about that? By the way, the report that Big Dom,
Sal Pal? Was that Sal Pal?
Sal Pal reaching into his bag using the Italian connection. Big Dom yanked AJ Brown out of practice and brought him over to see the Godfather, Jeffrey Lurie.
Come with me.
I want to have a talk with you. Go sit in the car.
Don't worry about it. You'll see what this is about when we get over there.
This is an Austrian and an Irish guy trying to do Italian accents on a podcast. Who knows? Might be able to save their season, but 16-9. I mean,
they do have like the one thing about the Eagles though. The Eagles and the Chiefs have like, remember like when the schedule comes out, we were like, holy crap, that's kind of effed up what they're doing to them. We're entering that stage of the schedule for these teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so the Eagles play on a Friday, they play on a Saturday, they play on a Friday, a Saturday. I thought, no, they don't play Christmas. So I think that might be, so they've got like a couple funky weeks. And then the Chiefs are playing like, I think every day of the week, the rest of the year, something like that. Right.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
but you know what too? This is evidence of
remember how last year the NFL put candy canes on the people's on the team's jerseys that were going through like the 3 games in 10 days stretch as if that made it okay.
It's like, oh yeah, you guys love just having your bodies permanently disfigured. Because
like if you adjust those 2 interlocking candy canes, you can actually make it look like a red cross.
I do think that this is perfect evidence, though, Albert, of the fact that like we look at these schedules. So we're proven right in a lot of ways because you look at the.
I'm sorry. What I meant to say was okay. So they have the Friday game, then they have with the Eagles. This is why I'm because this is Monday. I'm still kind of like a crackhead right now, but like looking at this, right? So they have the Friday game, then they come back and they go Monday, Sunday, Saturday. So they have like consecutive short weeks in there, which, I mean, they're playing the Raiders and Commanders on those short weeks, so maybe it won't make a difference, but it is there.
Right. I just think this is the perfect example of, I mean, we said it. We were worried about the Commanders, right? Perfect example. Yeah. That's too many games in prime time. That's too many games on short rest. That's too many And now they're going to have 2 games against the Eagles with Marcus Mariota, if they're lucky, at quarterback. And, so, and it's funny because like, every schedule looks like a gauntlet in one way, shape, or form. And then at this point in the season, it's just funny to hear us say like, holy crap, the Eagles get to play the Commanders still twice and they're going to get to 10 wins.
It's weird. Yeah. That's where we are. You know what I mean?
Like, that's where we are.
Yeah. Things are kind of upside down this year, more so than they've been. I'd said parity is dead in the NFL, or it had been dying a slow death, and it's back this year for sure.
For sure. I'm sure 345 Parks tweeted about it 600,000 times. I don't have an overarching Albert Goff take. I just think that like, okay, yes, it was the worst completion percentage of his career as a Lion and his worst, I think, EPA per play. But like, I just think he's going to have some bad games. And I do wonder if
7-22 in the second half, I think was the number, right? Something like that.
I was just surprised with Dan Campbell calling the plays that Jahmyr Gibbs only got 12 carries. And you were pretty much, it was a 1-score game the entire time. Like, I wonder if he almost, I almost wonder if he was trying to continually get Goff his confidence back over the course of that game. Though?
I mean, like, I think what Gibbs, you got to be careful. Like, I always feel like backs like that, like, there's always the temptation, like, oh, he looks so good. Like, let's use him more. I do think that like they're with that type of back, there's like a little bit of a management thing that you have to engage in. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why David Montgomery's in the roster.
Right.
So like I hear you. And maybe you would have seen them running the ball more than 21 times. But I do think that there's a piece of that. There's also like the element of like, when it's not working, it's not working. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that's sort of where they were. My one concern with the Lions actually isn't Goff though. Is the offensive line at a high enough percentage of what it's been over the last 3 years to create the identity that the Lions are going to need in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Assuming they get there, because Taylor Decker's been in and out of the lineup. They clearly like aren't as good as they were inside when they had, guys like Frank Ragnow and going back further, Jonah Jackson, in there. And so this is one of those things where it's like so much of the team's identity ran through that offensive line. It's almost like we talked about with the Chargers, right? Which we'll get to them, but so much of the team's identity ran through the offensive line that if you're just average there where you were great, does it take a toll on, or does it take a chunk out of the identity of the team? I think it has.
How does it not? Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, and we saw that starting in the Vikings game. I thought that was sort of the dam breaking on this team, but
they had trouble up front, like handling the Eagles front for sure.
Oh yeah, and that's been a theme. That was why Dan Campbell, I think, took over play calling. I think to protect his guys a little bit, but even he's finding out that. And I'm not saying that Johnny Morton wasn't doing a bad job. Not a bad job. I mean, he was top 10 in legitimately every category, and Dan Campbell still took over play calling, which is amazing. But I just think that he probably, he's finding out that there's just not an immediate solution to this other than you need 4 more generational players. You know what I mean? Like, whoops. Okay. I guess we figured that one out. Anyway, let's move on, man. We got a lot to get to here. We can buzz through some of these games before we get to Seahawks Rams, because I want to close out with that one. That was a great one. Dolphins, I said it last week, Albert. We didn't throw them away. They're 16. Right. They won 16.
We looked at their schedule.
Looked up the schedule.
Let the record show that we were the first people to actually look at their schedule and be like, "Holy crap! They're going to be 6-7 going into Pittsburgh in the middle of December."
This was the first podcast.
Yeah. The Dolphins are alive. Yes.
And I want to just add this. Okay, so every year I do my coaches list, which is coming to we're wrapping it up. We're getting there. It's a big production, but I will say this: just making some calls. I think that there is a chance that Mike McDaniel holds on to this job, and I'll tell you why. For 2 reasons. Okay, they like him. Dolphins like him, and if this GM search gets really competitive, okay. Let's say that the Dolphins want their GM to hire their head coach, the next head coach, right? Let's say that the Dolphins don't close on the GM until January 2 or January 3. Let's say it's just a competitive search, right? And they bring in a ton of guys and it just takes a while, right? Okay, then you're already out of the coaching carousel for that year. And even if you get there on time, if you're a GM, what are you looking for in this search? And you could say whatever. But what is every team really looking for? A guy who can turn around a quarterback, call plays on offense, and be that steady offensive presence who's always going to kind of evolve with the game. Mike already is that. And if he gets fired, Albert, I guarantee you he's going to interview for at least one head coaching job and will be the top offensive coordinator candidate at every opening around the league. So if you're the new GM, it's like, well, why am I firing this guy? You know
I mean, it's easy for me to see a scenario where, like, let's say Robert Saleh becomes the head coach in Tennessee, and now all of a sudden Mike McDaniel's working with Cam Ward. You know what I mean? Like, something like that's definitely on the table. And I think, to his credit, like, so Stephen Ross, who, I think has got a checkered record as owner for sure. He's still looking for his first playoff win as owner, and he's had the team since 2007. But I think one thing that my understanding is that he had heard from enough people what a great second chance head coach Mike McDaniel would become, that I think he sort of stopped and was like, maybe I shouldn't pull the plug on his first chance so quick. If all these people think that this guy is going to be great in his second try, well, can we get him there? And it made me recall Marvin Lewis, and just bear with me here. And I know we're trying to get through these games quick, but just bear with me on this one. So I had a conversation with Marvin Lewis where he went through the thing with Carson Palmer in 2010, right?
Yeah.
And he basically had enough self-awareness to realize he was like that. He'd been the head coach in Cincinnati for 8 years. And he had enough self-awareness to realize, well, 99% of guys in my spot right now would be getting fired. I'm lucky to hang on to this job. So you always hear about people going and learning about from being fired. Why don't I just evaluate myself now as it is? You know what I mean? Like, and treat this as if I'd been fired. And he revamped a bunch of stuff and brought in Jay Gruden to be his offensive coordinator. And obviously there's a separation from Palmer, which nobody wanted, but then they wind up going and getting Andy Dalton. And then he makes the playoffs 5 years in a row,
Right.
And so like, I like the idea like that, like Mike McDaniel could be a great second chance head coach. Well, wait a minute. Like if I'm Steve Ross, like I can understand where Steve Ross would look at that and say, maybe we ought to give him a better chance his first time around.
Yeah.
And so if I'm Ross and I keep him, I'm telling you, go call Marvin Lewis and have that conversation with him and like really analyze where you're at as a head coach. Like we want to make it work here, but go through the process of like a guy who's been fired and see where you're at. And, I think if he does that, like you could wind up with like, holy crap, this really worked out, and if Steve Ross wants that, let me ask you this, Conor. They start interviewing GM candidates, right? Do you think that they would have a bias towards guys who would say, I want to keep Mike?
Well, and this is what happened with the, one of the first GM searches I covered with the Jets and John Idzik, right? And all the coaches or all the GMs that came in there, it was like we felt like Woody Johnson wanted to keep Rex Ryan. And so you tell him that, yeah, I'm going to keep Rex Ryan. Now, I think I hope Stephen Ross is smarter than that. It's like, hey, it's up to you. We just have no problem with this guy. Do you think you can make it work? And if I'm a GM, though, politically, it's just smart because what does this option give you as a GM? It gives you a 1-year scot-free reset button where let's just say you go 7-10 again next year with McDaniel. And then the GM can be like, okay, clearly it's the coach's problem. Then you fire the coach and then you start over again. And you probably get a year added to your contract because you want them to be in sync with the other coach. Right. And so it's not a bad procedural move, like politically. I don't know. I don't see the problem. That's why I think this is just a long way of saying don't count out Mike McDaniel yet in Miami. I think
I think like there are a couple guys that are important too. The president, Tom Garfinkel, and then Brandon Shore, who's their cap chief. I think he's going to have like a role in all of this too. And I know people haven't heard that name, but I think it's an important name. I think he could wind up being like what Kevin Demoff was in LA. And now Tony Pastores is there. What Mike Disner has been in Detroit. These names may not mean anything to people, but they're guys who kind of were stabilizing forces in their organizations. And Brandon Shore is just a name to watch, is somebody who, like, when they reimagine the whole structure of things, maybe it's a 3-headed thing, where you've got a general manager who's sort of focused on scouting the way Les Snead is in LA, or John Lynch is in San Francisco with Parag Marathe there, or Brad Holmes is in Detroit. You have that guy focusing on scouting, and then you have, almost like the second arm of the GM, with the cap chief. Like, I think there's going to be a reimagination of things that way too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So let's, there's like 100 good games here. I'm going to blow through some of these.
We'll
Okay.
fire through them. Yeah, let's go.
Let's fire through some of them. Ravens, Browns. I mean, whatever. Shadure Sanders played in this game. You may have heard of it. Some bad calls and officiating in this one too, with involving the down punt at the 1 yard line. I'm sure if you're a Browns fan and you saw that, you're right there with me. The Ravens should not have gotten a touchback on that one. But Sheduer Sanders comes in, goes 4 of 16 for 47 yards and an interception. It didn't look quite as bad. I'm not going to play that game though. This is what it is.
I mean,
the Ravens
conversation's so far gone on him, like where it's like people are like litigating practice reps, which I haven't heard that happen with any player this way. And we're doing it with a 5th round pick. And it's like, I don't know how many ex players have to say, no one but the starter gets first team reps during the season for people to actually believe it. Like, and throw out the idea that Shadure has been wronged here somehow. He hasn't been. Like, he's just, he's a backup. He got in a game. All the same problems that everybody had with Shadure are still there. Doesn't mean he's not working at. Doesn't mean he can't eventually become a productive NFL player. But, if your takeaway from that game is anything but like, wow, like that sort of shows me, you see some flashes, but that really shows me why they couldn't play him to this point. I don't even know what to do with your opinion.
Yeah. Whatever. This is what's happening with Baltimore too. They're rolling, but rolling, I guess, is a strong word, but Jim Schwartz is going to F up everybody. And I feel like the Ravens got a full dose of that.
This is another, honestly, dude, sorry to cut you off, but this is where we're going to get with some of these things where there are some really good defenses this year, right? Like we've got what's going on in Philly, what's going on in Cleveland. And, the quarterbacks are going to, the quarterbacks are going to be made to look bad. And we got to stop with the one-off conversations over the course of a week where what's wrong with this guy or what's wrong with that guy. This is Cleveland. This is a really great defense making Lamar Jackson look really mortal, and stuff like that's going to happen over the course of a 17 game.
100%. Panthers 30, Falcons 27 in OT. Bryce Young with a career high 448 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tet McMillan with an absolute monster of a game, 8 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young really got off. I mean, he got off his backside literally in this game. I mean, he was knocked out. He was knocked down. And Penix also was knocked out of this game, but stayed out. And we had Kirk Cousins for the second half, which is when really you could say that Carolina's massive comeback started because it was 21-10 at half. Yeah. And then the Falcons only scored 6 points in the second half.
Atlanta's just snake bitten at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's starting to be bells for the Raheem Morris and probably the GM at this point too. I mean, I don't really see a way around a house cleaning this offseason if you're Atlanta.
That's 5 losses in a row, and now. After you invested the way you did at quarterback, neither of them producing at the level they need to produce. I think things really come to a head in the next 2 weeks. They have to win the next 2 weeks. They go to New Orleans and they're at the Jets. Those are 2 games that just on talent alone, you should be able to chalk them up. If you're Atlanta, if you win those 2 games, you're at 5-7. You've got a puncher's chance going into the stretch run, and the schedule stiffens from there. But you have to win these next 2 games.
I mean, on talent alone, they should have 7 or 8 wins this year. I mean, this is a good team. Yep. I don't know. Texans 16, Titans 13. I think if you go back over the history of football, this will be one of those games that you could ask 600 people if they remember, and unless you had some sort of debilitating gambling loss, it's just not going to stick out. But I will, credit to Davis Mills, just getting it done. And the Texans are 5-5 again. And this is just
this is the sort of game where the gambling hijinks could happen because no one's paying attention.
Of course. I mean, there's probably 11 bad calls in this game too. This is not one that I've gotten to yet on Game Pass, but this is the one where you get to the end of watching all the games before you do power rankings, and you're like, all right, here we go. Let's put the old snowsuit on and let's trudge through this one. But this is another example of my grand takeaway here is just a couple of these teams are going to make life more complicated for the Chiefs now. I mean, in the AFC, and Houston's climbing back into it. You get CJ Stroud back. I don't necessarily think that there's going to be much of a difference when Stroud comes back, but they'll get a little bit of a boost. He can probably make some plays, although Davis Mills is unlocking Nico Collins at this point, which I think is something that's at least worth paying attention to,
And the defense is still really good. Like, hasn't been perfect, but for the most part,
right.
like, has done what it's needed to do. This is 3 wins in 4 weeks for them. I still think like that program is in good shape, and like, I think they're showing the same stuff they showed last year where the offensive line was just a tire fire. Like they were able to get to 10 wins and win their division last year. Like there's a resilience to the way that group plays. Like that, not that I think they're going to beat the Bills and Colts the next 2 weeks, but they've put themselves in it. And like, I think, we're probably talking about a 9-win team at the end of the year, which is pretty good considering all the things they've been through.
Yeah. Next up, Albert, we have what do we got here? We got the Bears and the Vikings. Chicago is 7-3, and this was not the sexiest game on any front, but I think the important thing is that they were able to they're winning the 1-score games. Like there's a couple teams that get the heater every year, and Chicago's the one that's finally getting this. And everyone's saying, "Oh, well, they're just getting the 1-score games. They're getting the 1-score games." But the Vikings made a habit of this under Kevin O'Connell, and they were coached well enough and they were quarterbacked well enough to be able to make this a thing. I think that Chicago can continue to make this a thing. I mean, they do play gritty down the stretch. They do bear down. Now, you had that JJ McCarthy kind of almost magical comeback drive at the end of this game, but it wasn't enough. And so I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know what the Bears' ceiling is at this point, but they're fun to watch most of the time. Caleb Williams looks as consistent and feels that way too. Like when he's at the podium, when he's on the sideline, he's less like demonstrative. His body language is better. Like everything just kind of looks up in Chicago right now. It looks good.
Yeah, and they don't need him to be Superman to win, which is great. You know what I mean? Like he has put on the cape some in the last few weeks, like that. Again, like I think if they're in the playoffs, remember the throw he made to Colston Loveland to beat the Bengals. We'll remember the scrambles against the Giants. So he has these big moments, but I think the key is they're not putting too much on him. They're running the ball well. This is another one where they ran the ball almost 40 times. They're playing good defense. Like they're just it just feels like it's a pretty well-rounded team. You know what I mean? Like, and the arrow continues to point up on them. Are you worried about JJ? I know he made the throws down the stretch. There was some really shaky quarterback play.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like this was, there was some alarming. There was, and again, like I want to give them time, and I think, but I mean, like they are to some degree in evaluation mode the rest of the year on what they're going to do in 26. Like outside of like the end of some of these games, it just hasn't been good so far.
I think that Kevin O'Connell has an easy path here, and I'll just make a prediction that I don't think he's going to be the one that's blamed for this, and there's someone else in the building he can blame for it. And
I think that's probably right.
I think that he probably gets his way and gets someone else in there that will help him pick a quarterback that's better. So that's just a thought, and I'm talking about the general manager. So. Yeah, the Packers beat the Giants 27-20. My only thought on this one, Albert, is good for Mike Kafka because yes, it was a loss, but like did exactly what I would do if I was a child and got named the interim head coach of the Giants, which is go for it on every goddamn fourth down. Who gives a shit? Put Jameis Winston in, like F it, throw the ball down. Like, he did exactly what I would do. And there's so many coaches that get the interim job and they're like, oh, well, it's 4th and 2. We better punt because I got to explain this to someone else. No, F that. If you're Mike Kafka, like just treat this like it's the most realistic game of Madden you're ever going to get to play. And he's doing that. And I like it. And I think the team will respond to it in kind. I don't know if he's the guy that takes over at this point, but it was I thought it was a nice performance by him and a get right game for the Packers as well.
Yeah. I mean, like for the Packers, I come out of this and say, all right, like, Jordan Love made a couple of real big throws. Like the plays that Christian Watson made, like, can he be the number one? And I think that's like really the question now, especially if you lose Tucker Kraft. It's like, okay, like who do you have a go-to guy in the offense? Or are you just dealing with this balance of like, it's got to be somebody else every week, it really spread the ball around again. And again, I still feel like you're feeling the loss of Kraft, but it was Watson this week who physically probably looks the most like a number one, and then I think you also have to be concerned, of course, with the health of Josh Jacobs coming out of this one.
Yeah, I mean, if they sustain any more damage to their run game and to the effectiveness of their run game, I mean, this team is hosed. And I think we know that. For now, it's just like, okay, it's just a not panic 6-3-1, and you see what happens. I mean, you're in second place in the division, and at this point, you have the Vikings, which I think is a nice little landing spot game for them. Then, I mean, then we really, Green Bay's got one more week to figure their shit out, and then you got at Detroit, Chicago, at Denver, Chicago, Baltimore, and then Minnesota to close it out. So I'm not saying that the Packers are going to make I'm not ready to say that this team is definitely in the playoffs yet.
Right.
I think I need another week to see how they respond. Just really quickly before we get to the two big ones, Steelers 34, Bengals 12. Aaron Rodgers may have broken his non-throwing wrist, and so I think the league kind of comes to a halt at this point until we figure out what Pittsburgh is going to do at the quarterback position. And you brought in Mason Rudolph, who was 12 of 16 for 127 and a touchdown. Had a good game.
Mostly fine, actually. Yeah.
But man, the Bengals are buried now. They're the only team in NFL history, Albert, to have given up. What was it? It was some ridiculous number. It was 32 points or 33 points in a row for 8 straight weeks or something like that. But it was not good.
And it wasn't even I don't even know, because of the turnovers that you have to hang some of that on the offense too. Kyle Duggar has the interception return for a touchdown. So because of, some of the big turnovers in key spots, is it really how much of are you hanging on the defense? The Bengals just look sideways in general. And I think the situation between Jamar Chase and Jalen Ramsey was sort of indicative of a lot of the frustration that's going on right now.
We got a spitter. Another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that an automatic suspension? I was thinking about that.
I think it should be, right? I'm gonna die on this hill. If Jamar Chase is playing against the Patriots, I'm gonna lose it, because you said that Jalen Carter served a 1-game suspension because the spitting incident happened before the start of a game. Jamar Chase can't be in that game against the Patriots. I love Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is on my fantasy team. I am right in the thick of the playoffs. He can't play against the Patriots. If that's the precedent that you set on spitting, he can't play against the Patriots. Can't do it.
Yeah. Patriots have a horseshoe, have a horseshoe, where. Sorry, messed up that rather disgusting analogy. With the way things have played out, the fact that they would get Jamar Chase missing, that's old school Patriots, things like that would happen where Jamar Chase is suddenly out for their game against the Bengals.
Jaguars 35, Chargers 6. This was a nice little get back on the horse game, even though this was not a good Trevor Lawrence game at all. Jacksonville controlled the ground in this one, and they were able to get after the Chargers defensively. This was a good Campanale game as well. This is one of those, it was highly consequential in terms of playoff percentages, but is not one that I'm necessarily digging deep in terms of, I think the Chargers are just exhausted, Albert. I mean, they've been playing so many of these big games with a banged up roster, and this was inevitable at some point.
It's I'm looking at the game book now. They got more than quadrupled up in rushing yards. Can you imagine saying that before the year, that in mid-November, the Jaguars would have more than quadruple almost quintuple
quintuple.
Almost quintuple the rushing numbers that the Chargers had against them. Like that to me is kind of a indication of where the Chargers are right now. And again, like I think like losing those two tackles, losing Alt and Slater completely stripped the Chargers of their identity, and that's why they look rudderless at this point. And why it is where they are. I don't know very many teams that could lose two players of that level at that position and survive. And it certainly looks like the Chargers are struggling to do so right now.
We have,
and credit to the Jaguars too, because again, like this, Liam Cohen has found a way on a week to week basis. Like it's a team that's connected and together, and I think like being able to win again when your quarterback doesn't play all that well. Like you said, Campanelli's done a really good job with the defense and being able to create havoc and cause turnovers. Like I think the Jaguars are like, you can just see the signs of where that program is and where they're going.
We'll see if they can hang on for a playoff spot, and that's when I'll truly buy in. And I know it's not fair to Liam Cohen. He's doing a great job in his first year. It's just like I've been down this road before. 49ers 41, Cardinals 22. This is it's starting to get dark a little early for Jonathan Gannon as well. We talked about him, I think, in the same way that you talk about Raheem Morris. Jacoby Brissett almost threw the ball 60 times in this game and threw for over 450 yards, which is insane. But the 49ers are getting close to healthy. I mean, we had Ricky Pearsall in this game, even though it was just one catch. Christian McCaffrey had like 900 more all-purpose yards, and Brock Purdy was back. 3 touchdowns and a 133 quarterback rating. Just a little bit of a cleaned up version of Mac Jones. And you can see what this team can do. They're going to be a nightmare, Albert, for someone as like a 6 or a 7 seed.
Like, and we talk about like losing people and the ability to withstand losses. How many teams could withstand the loss of players the level of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner?
Yeah.
And be 7-4. You know what I mean? Those are two guys that like I legitimately at the end of all of this have a shot to get in the Hall of Fame, and you're losing those two guys. You've been without Brandon Ayuk the whole year, who's your number one receiver, who you're paying to be your number one receiver. You've had the quarterback issue. And I thought Brock, it's okay to say they're both good quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Like Brock Purdy and Mac Jones are both good quarterbacks. Brock Purdy's better, but they're both good quarterbacks, And
I think this is a problem the Vikings wish they had.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's just, and I think it's another sign of the program that Kyle Shanahan's built and why, when they detach from all these guys and maybe they have a rough year in there, right? Like when the Bosa, Warner, McCaffrey, when that the Kittle, Trent, like that, when that core finally ages out, and some of the guys that have been there and were there have filtered out, of course, already. Why you should continue to trust Kyle Shanahan. And if you have a little bit of a sideways year, you need to keep him your coach. Like he should be a 25-year coach in San Francisco. You know what I mean? Like he's done a phenomenal job this year, and that shouldn't be overlooked either.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, we got the two big ones here to close out the show. Rams Seahawks. My takeaway on this one is that I left more impressed with the Seahawks than I came in with, and here's why. Sam Darnold was awful in this game. I mean, It was a 45 quarterback rating. He threw 4 interceptions, and a lot of this wasn't like the playoffs, right? It wasn't like a lot of guys in his face and a lot of blitzes. Like some of these were from a clean pocket. It wasn't just like
the Vikings got run over in the playoffs. They like
threw some bad passes
because of it. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a really, really, really bad game. And despite that, Seattle had the ball with 3 timeouts, and they were near midfield with a chance to win this game. Plain and simple. I mean, that to me says everything it needs to say about Mike McDaniel, Yep.
Phenomenal. I thought Uchenna Nwosu made one of the most underrated plays I've seen all year. If you saw the stop he made when they needed it of Kyron Williams, where Kyron Williams is like one of these like rolling ball butcher knives running backs, right? Like you do not like he makes contact with you, and it's not fun to be in his way, right? And like what I watched Uchenna Nwosu do on one of these plays there at the end to kind of create the opportunity for them to get the ball back, where he literally stood the guy up in the hole. I'm like, holy crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Flat footed just stopped him. And that to me, like seeing that play was sort of like indicative of what the Seahawks have become like the ultimate. It's like they've done such an effective job of like importing the Ravens style, the Ravens ethos on defense, like even down to having like a Nick Warry playing the role of Kyle Hamilton. And I mean, it's just the ultimate tough guy defense now, you know? And I love where Seattle's at across the board. I'm with you. Like they outgained the Rams in this game. They're a very real threat to win that division still. You know, the one problem I have, this is a problem I'm seeing more in the league. The clock management at the end of this game drove me nuts. And you know why?
Why?
It was because the Seahawks were so worried about not burning downs, right? Like where they would be getting the play call in and letting 15 seconds, 20 seconds run off the clock rather than just getting into the line and spiking it. It's like, look, man, if you can't get 10 yards and 3 downs in this situation, you ain't winning the game anyway. So burning that, like after you get a first down, burning a snap on with a spike is not a bad thing. And I feel like you're seeing more and more of that across the NFL now, where these teams are trying to get cute and be like, all right, well, we have 3 plays called, you know, and don't worry, like, I can just hustle to the line. Like, sometimes the best play in those situations, like what happened to the good old fashioned clock it? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Did you feel that way watching the end of that game?
A little bit, but
I was
a little bit
yelling at the screen, like, why aren't you clocking it? You know, like that's just like a little pet peeve of mine, like that I've noticed more and more. It feels like coaches are more worried about burning the down than they are burning clock. And I think in those situations when you're 2 minutes to go, like trust your players to have the horsepower to take care of the yardage and save the clock. Cause I mean, they blew so much time at the end of this game. Like they should have been able to get 10 or 15 yards closer for Myers to kick that field goal.
I'm so happy that Olsen had this game because he feels the same way that I do, where like starting with like 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, even like 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, if you're down by more than a score, you need to go now. Yeah. Like it's not just like, and so that's like, and he kept saying it. I think he said it like 50 times between the start of the fourth quarter and the end of the game. It's like, the 2-minute offense starts now. It's not when it's 2 minutes to go. It's now, because you don't know how many possessions you're going to get left. You're facing Sean McVay, and the Rams, I thought, really, like, the one thing that I thought was interesting and is sort of this little nugget to consider for the remainder of the season. Everyone came into this game saying, what, 13 personnel, which, like, we all talk like football coaches now because we think it's cool. We can just say that the Rams use a lot of tight ends. That's a way that, like, everyone can understand it. And then, you know, like, we're not all walking around with like Copenhagen in our mouth and like a clipboard. Like, we can just call it what it is. They use a lot of tight ends, okay? And it helps them run, but they can also pass.
That was more of a skull man back in the day, but that's all right.
Me too. Yeah. But you notice that, like, you know, there's people online, like, you know, like people in our positions that are like, yeah, they ran like the robber on cover 2. And it's like, man, you know, our job is to distill that so that people can understand it. It's not so that we can try to like put on our khakis and
prove that we're behind the fence. Yeah.
I used to
be good. I'll raise my hand. I used to do a lot more of that. I've really cut back on using that nomenclature. Although, like, actually coaching football has got me back into it. I had a good conversation with Rosillo about it last week on his podcast, where I'm like, we were talking about like the long play calls, and I'm like, what coaching like 5th graders has reminded me is how easy it is to get to like 8 or 9 words in a play call when it's actually not that complicated. They're all just code words, you know?
Yeah.
And I used H-jet motion pull counter as like one of our plays, which sounds like a lot for a 5th grader, but it's really not. It just means the H is doing jet sweep motion, fake to him, and then we're running a counter, right, to the tailback, and the guard's pulling, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like it's like basically 4 code words, you know? So anyway.
But the Rams, they moved from 13 personnel to just 11, right? Like,
Yep.
which is your 3 wide receiver, 1 back sets. And then it's funny, right? They were passing out of their multi tight end big sets, and then they started running out of their light box wide receiver sets. And that's what they can do to you that no other team can do, right?
Right.
I mean, plain and simple. And
That's why
so,
Ferguson was so important for them in the draft. And I know Sean was all over him. They like having that sort of tight end that they could toggle and move around. It's the same sort of concept as Puka, where Puka allows you, because he's so big and strong, to look like you're coming out of one thing when you break the huddle, but be in something else. Like, it's all of those like sort of queens on the chessboard that they have out there. And, I think Ferguson grows into becoming that. Obviously Puka has been one of that. Cooper Kupp over the years was, yeah, I mean, I'm like, I still think the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. They didn't need to even, like, the one thing that was impressive about this from a Rams perspective is they didn't even need to, I'm going to use that analogy again, take the Ferrari out of the garage very much, right? They didn't need Stafford to be a superstar to win this one.
yeah. I'm with you though. You've been on this as a Super Bowl team all along. I'm there. I wish I did it first, because we'll get to the Bills in a second. I'm just not.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
will
That
say
team
part of
scares
that,
the bejesus out of me.
part of that was just sort of vibes too. It's like when you see these teams in training camp, it's like, I remember having this conversation with one of their people when I was out there, and this is like after spending a day with them, and it was at the end of the day, and I said to one, I'm like, you guys think you're going to, it hit me. I was like just hearing the way that they were all talking about the team. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you guys think you're going to the Super Bowl, huh? He's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Yeah. So,
But there's such like a nonchalance about it. You know what I mean?
They're not trying to force anything. There's nothing like, there's no, like, they're not pushing it, but you just start to put those pieces together. And it was like, these guys think they're really good. And they were right, obviously.
Last but not least, Buffalo, and they beat it kind of beat the brakes off the Buccaneers a little bit. The score, I don't think, was indicative of how really amazing and back and forth this game was for a large portion of it. But in the end, Buffalo.
This was a heavyweight fight.
It was. I mean, I think you could classify it as that. In the end, they win 44-32. And what everybody's going to say first is that Josh Allen scored 6 freaking touchdowns. And I'm curious what your thought is on this, because I've been at every edge of this argument. Okay. I was first, really, I thought, on someone needs to cap his rushes. Someone needs to cap the way that he plays. And I think that the Bills tried, right? Because after Brian Dable, we had Ken Dorsey, and Ken Dorsey was limiting his rush attempts, but then that ended up getting him fired. That was an organizational directive, I think, to limit Josh Allen's rushing attempts. Ken Dorsey did it. Ken Dorsey got pushed out for Joe Brady. Then Josh Allen started running again. What Joe Brady did, I thought, was smart, in that he converted to this sort of defend every blade of grass offense, where it doesn't really depend on Josh Allen dropping back as much. He can just take 2 steps, and there's just a couple of guys around. He can dump it off. He can run, do whatever he wants with it. The problem with that, though, is I think we're back to the inclination to run. And you only had 6 attempts in this game, but there was some big physical shoulder down rushing attempts.
Right.
And my thing at this point is, like, Albert, it doesn't matter. Like, Josh Allen is either going to be glowing like he's on NBA Jam, or he's going to be like he was last week in Miami, like 10% of the time, where he's just going to be really bad and off. But 90% of the time, he's going to be the best player on the field, and you just have to let him do what he wants. There's some horses you can't contain, right? And like, Josh Allen doesn't belong in an offense. It's just like, okay, just go be Josh Allen, you know?
I mean, the crazy thing to me was like that this game didn't start great for him. Like, I thought in the first quarter.
No, the interception was horrible, right?
He looked pretty bad in the first quarter, and it was like, God, like, is this a continuation of the Miami thing? And, that's a good defensive team that throws a lot at you. And so, like, for him to be able to, put his foot in the ground and turn the thing around when his team needed it most, like, this was a force of nature Josh Allen game. Like, there were a couple of throws, like, there are those throws he makes, like, there are these throws he makes down the sideline where he starts like running forward, and then just like it almost looks like he's putting his weight into the throw. You know what I mean? Like, and you just know he's about to hit someone in stride, and that person's going to be running full speed too. And it just looks like the most unstoppable thing on earth, because you got a freight train running directly at the defense, which is like, they're like, oh crap, he's coming. And then it's like, nope, like the ball is coming at you, and you guys are all frozen. And now we got another guy running full speed, into the end zone. And it's, I really want, do you think like, as far as the skill group goes, and look, like, I think part of it is, of course, like, you don't have Kincaid, right? And you don't have Keon Coleman, who are the two most highly drafted guys, I think, in their skill group today, right? Do you think this is just what they are, or do you think they're going to wind up getting more out of these guys in a month or two?
Well, Coleman, I mean, was called out by his teammates for.
I mean, Coleman. It was almost like with Coleman, it got to like we're fed.
That's
up.
A discipline issue. You know what I mean?
We're fed up with you. You need, like, this is because I even thought, like, did you see the video of him dancing before the game?
Yeah.
I was just like, I think Ty Dunn tweeted it out, right? Like, I saw it and I'm like, I don't want to begrudge anybody, whatever. And then maybe this makes me sound like an old man, but like, I think having the self-awareness not to do that, like, and I love Keon Coleman and the personality he's shown and everything else, but like, maybe this is the game where you keep a low profile. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
We've all been, you know what though? Like, and I think when I saw that, we all forget what it's like to play organized football and like kind of the kaleidoscope of personalities that are in that locker room. Yeah. And we have all played with, now my experience in Pennsylvania is probably a little bit different, where, we had a kid with a Gatorade thing that had vodka in it that we was just drinking on the sidelines. And so, we had some of those issues, but we had kids who just were sort of just averse to discipline. And so the coaches would get mad at them and they double down or they do something dumber. And like, that's just football. That's like the lot that this sport attracts,
Yeah, we had so at one point we had two Mormons on the team, and we called one bad Mormon, the other one good Mormon. One was like an actual Mormon, like, and carried himself like that. The other one did not carry himself like a Mormon at all. So we called him good Mormon, bad Mormon. We had one of our defensive tackles, a good friend of mine, liked to partake in some things before practice that he claimed made him better. So, I mean, it's not. Yeah, I'm with you. I think what the point you're getting at, right? Like I said, it's not the sport for the most well-adjusted individuals, right?
No. And so,
yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think I made this point about, I forget what I was writing about, but like, you're not going to get the best of a player until you accept all of that person. And the competitiveness comes folded in with all the weird. You know what I mean? My thought, though, is this. If you want Josh Allen to be Josh Allen, you have to let him be Josh Allen 24 hours a day. And if you want Keon Coleman to be Keon Coleman, you have to let Keon Coleman be Keon Coleman 24 hours a day. It's going to come with some good things. It's going to come with some bad things. I'm not worried about Buffalo in the playoffs, because how many times, I mean, you look at all the best moments, and you could go back to the, big fourth down conversion that the Bills have had against the Chiefs, or, any of these moments. A lot of it is like running, like check down passes to running backs, to tight ends. It becomes a shorter field, and every possession becomes like, what can you do for me within the scope of like 5 to 7 yards? And that's not to say that weapons aren't valuable, but I just think the Bills could probably play better in a shorter span. And it's just like, this is what Joe Brady wanted to do. And, keep going down that road and keep searching. I don't know.
I mean, here's the other thing, like, and this is to me like the most impressive thing about like the character of that team, not to get hokey about it, but what's the two problems the Bills have had this year when they've struggled? I'd say it's turnovers and run defense, right?
Yep.
They had both those issues early in this game. And so their ability to kind of fight through that, when it'd be easy for that to be PTSD for that team, right? Like bad turnover early, they're running right through you. Like I think the Bucs had like 130 yards rushing in the first half. So like their ability to fight through whatever PTSD, because that would look exactly how they lost to the Dolphins, right? That unexplainable loss. So to be able to kind of shore up those two areas on the fly, I think speaks highly of where they're at. I also, I mean, and I'm with you, like the Josh Allen thing, it's just like, I don't know if he's the most valuable player in football. He's the best player in football. He's the best player. Like, and there's no one who's capable of what he's capable of. And he is such a freak with some of the stuff that he does that I want to make sure that I continue to have an appreciation for watching it while I'm still watching it. Because Mahomes is great. Like Mahomes is going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Burrow's great. Lamar's great. Like this, Allen's a different cat. You know, like he's a different player.
I think that you can make the argument that he's the most valuable because, I mean, if you remove him, everything collapses. But I think that the reason it does is because, you know, Josh is the offense, and in a different way. Like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were the system, but you could take another quarterback and put them into, especially the Patriots system.
You could like take another quarterback,
and you can run it.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine asking Mitch Trubisky to be like, go in and do remotely what Josh Allen does? Like how insane that would be. Like just like,
well, no. You know what it is? You know what it is? It's like LeBron James, right? Like if like those Cavaliers teams back in the day, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, so much was he was doing so much for them. It was like he could play 5 positions, and like when he was at the height of his powers, and I know he played on, like, you know, okay, then they put together a dream team in Miami, and maybe Miami would have been okay with just Wade and Bosch, or you know, or the later Cavaliers are okay with just Kyrie and Kevin Love, but I mean, LeBron was so unique at the peak of his powers, like that there was just, if you take him out of the equation, it's like you're removing 2 or 3 players, not one. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like this is the closest the NFL has to that, like where it's just somebody who is so outrageously physically gifted that it's like if you take that piece out of the puzzle, a bunch of other things are going to go wrong. And it's not even that like the rest of it's the team is well conceived for having Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like, because they do have Josh Allen, and building a team around Josh Allen is different than building around any other player.
There's some great Keon Coleman clips out there now of him just like absolutely like, I mean, he has like some of the most incredible reps, and then like there are just ones where it just looks like he's not even like, you know, it's pretty funny. And now people are like really kind of looking for it on like all 22.
I do wonder though, like what would it look like if they had stuck where they were and taken Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Worthy? You know what I mean?
Oof. I mean the Worthy trade, because the Chiefs are kind of,
I think they would have been in a position to take Pearsall also, right? Isn't that right, or am I wrong about that? I have to look that up.
Let's see.
Multiple people Googling, say trademark of a good podcast.
So it was right. It was Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey, and so after Keon Coleman, was in there too, yeah, Ladd McConkey, Jalen Polk,
so there's some Mitchell there too, but like a McConkey or a Pearsall Malachi or a Worthy. You know, you can play that game until you're blue in the face, but yeah, taking Coleman over McConkey's a tough look too.
That is a tough look. And who knows? I mean, we would have said Brian Thomas is obviously the best receiver in this class and this year. I mean, Rome Odunze looks pretty good. Malik Neighbors looked good before he went down.
Marvin's come alive. Like, I think Marvin's going to be fine. Yeah, I guess you got to give these things 3 years anyway, but like I mean, hopefully you hope that the light comes on for Coleman. You know what I mean? Like you hope, because there is talent there. I think there's definitely something to work with there.
On the Bucs side, I thought it was just encouraging to see Baker Mayfield a little bit more mobile. He went like 3 weeks without running the ball at all. I think he looked a little bit healthier, even though the stats weren't necessarily there.
I don't think I think it's become so normal that they've been this beat up too, that like we're maybe not giving them quite enough grace for the amount of damage that's been done. I mean, playing without no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Bucky Irving. I think Cody Mock's still out. Ben Bredesen, another starting lineman for them, is out. Hassan Reddick on defense. Like, they're missing a lot of guys and have been missing a lot of guys the last couple of weeks. So, maybe, maybe in the long run they wind up being better for this, but they've dealt with a lot, and that's a big game for them next week, playing in LA on Sunday Night Football.
Right. I mean,
after that though, the rest of their schedule though, Connor. Oh, I'm looking at Tampa's schedule now. Well, Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, Carolina. I got
what I would do?
Yeah. So maybe that Rams game isn't that big.
Right? Like, wouldn't you almost if
you know what I mean?
Wouldn't you almost, if you were the Bucs, like soft bench like 5 of your best players against the Rams and just like,
I feel like
that's a mini buy.
That's a new term, isn't it? Soft bench. Because people were using it in reference to McCarthy, right? And then who else? Or somebody else.
But this isn't like for lack of skill. It's like, okay, a couple of these guys are just a little banged up. Let's let them rest or whatever. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. All right, Albert. We made it to the end of another week. This was one of my favorite weeks of the NFL season so far. It was great. Every now and then. What's that?
We got the capper tonight.
I'm good on Cowboys Raiders, and that's perfect, right? Because this is exactly what I like after like a feast on Sunday. When you have like a great dinner on like a Thursday, but then you have Friday night plans and it's another great restaurant, you almost feel like gluttonous and you're like, I can't really enjoy it properly. This is perfect. That's going to be on in the background. I'll watch it. I'll glance over because I have some thoughts. I want to watch that Cowboys run game a little bit more, and I'm going to watch them when they're on offense. But I expect this to be a comfortable, let's park the car game and let's get out of here by, let's get to bed at a decent hour. So that's my hope.
For sure.
We'll see. All right, guys. We'll see you.
I might fall asleep in the third quarter. I might, fall asleep in the third quarter. Who's to say what'll happen?
Albert's going to be passed out, but we can wake him up. We'll see you guys on Wednesday or Thursday. Thanks, as always, for listening to the MMQB podcast.